I've got this very inexpensive paper here to show you how I drew mine, and I'm actually not even going to use a drawing. I'm just going to show you how I use brush strokes, but I will get better paper. This is just my really inexpensive playing around testing colors paper. Okay, so as you know, I love guidelines. I think they are so helpful for me. And the way I did this morning glory, I noticed they were round, but a lot of times the pictures are on their side. I'm going to go ahead and hopefully you can see that. And then here is that front petal. So there you go. I love making the edges of petals a little bit interesting. And then they've got this funnel shape, so they're almost like a trumpet. And what I try to do in a lot of my paintings is I try to grab what is recognizable for me in flowers. So I've got this circle, they're trumpet shaped, so I will draw, you know, this little trumpet shape coming down, something like that. And all of these lines are going to be arching and going down into the center. The first, you know, this petal in front may be a little bit shorter, and you're going to see the bend of it. So let's go ahead and make our petals. And like I said, I like to give my petals some character. So that's what I'm doing here. So I've got these kind of ruffly edges. And then the one thing else I noticed about these flowers, I don't have them in my garden, but they have these, I want to say these are called sepals. So that was kind of recognizable to me, one of the first things I noticed. And then of course, they've got this long stem. The other thing I'm going to do, here's a bud as well, which is always kind of easy. They did kind of come to a point here like that, and then had these irregular lines, and again, kind of that funnel shape and those sepals. So a lot of times, even if your flower isn't perfect, they're going to be recognizable because of some of these things. Another thing I noticed, they were very light on the middle, you know, that middle part right here. So I'm going to try and leave some white space in there and maybe a little bit of yellow. Another really fun thing, they've got these little curly cues, or so I noticed. Last thing, the leaves. The leaves, let's just draw that stem, are heart-shaped, which you know I love that. So I'm going to do this heart shape. I thought that was really cool about them. And here's another one. So there you go. That's what I'm kind of keeping in mind when I paint this. So let's go ahead and get some paper. I am going to be working on this Artisto, and I'm going to raise the camera up a bit so you can see a little bit more here. Okay, now on to the Paul Rubens. You guys, of course, you know, when I saw this, I couldn't have been happier because it's a floral palette. Paul Rubens, that was one of the things years ago that really attracted me about them, and why I started buying their palettes probably 10 years ago, because I loved all the themed palettes. I like that. Not for everybody, I get, but I mean, look at how beautiful that is. That's really inspiring for me. So let's open it up. Of course, they've got their fun. I love things that are aesthetically pretty. This is aesthetically pretty, inspiring, and yet their palettes are really functional. And I love when a company can put that thought into it, that it's not only beautiful, but also functional and practical. I did too, when I originally started buying the Paul Rubens palettes, I was traveling a lot on weekend getaways, and these were really easy just to slip into my bag. So you've got this chamois-ish cloth. I'll tell you too, because I wondered even myself, like, what is this? Is it just for to be pretty, but here's that practical functionality of their packaging. I, out in the field, use this to dry off my brushes. You know, it's awfully pretty to use for that, but it worked really well. And then when I got back, I just rinsed it with some water. So I have used it for that. And actually their boxes are really cool too, but I keep all my paints in the boxes they come in. Here's their palette, that beautiful pink, you know I love that. And look at how slim it is. So this is really easy for me to put into my travel bags. We're gonna go ahead and open it up. As normal, they've got their swatch sheet here. I haven't done that yet, but I'll show you what I did do. And let me just raise the camera a bit. I've been obsessed with these color diary pages, and I've been using them for several years, only started sharing them recently. I went ahead and I swatched out all the colors. And what I do is I start with the darkest value on the left and get to my lightest value on the right, meaning added more and more water till I got to maybe 20% water, 80% pigment. And here was 80% pigment, 20% water. Why I like these two is they have this dark line so you can see how translucent the paints are, which all of these were pretty translucent, pretty sheer, except for maybe the permanent violet. The magenta was quite vibrant, but the rest I think were pretty good. And look at the colors, you guys. I mean, talk about a floral palette, gorgeous. This pink here, they're calling it peach light. Normally I love the rose red, I still do, and magenta. The peach light, really, I was kind of excited to see that in there. It reminded me of that Quin magenta, which I love. I don't use a lot because it's a little bit more expensive when I used to buy it through Winsor Newton. So I was kind of excited to see that on the palette. Lots of yellows. They do give you some neutrals here and dark browns. Van Dyke brown is always a good one. Thought it was interesting they didn't have a sap green, but I actually, the Hooker's green works for me, and I always like olive green, so they had those. I will say, which is typical for like a Quin magenta, it is a little bit grainy. I don't have a problem with that. I actually like that in my florals and things, more organic type of paintings. So there you go. There's the colors. Another thing, if this is important to you, I think it was 17 or 18 of these are single pigment colors. What that means for beginners is just when a pigment is single pigment, it's much more the truer color. And if you were to mix yellow and red and they're both single pigments, you know you're getting that true color, and it's going to make a true orange. If you have pigments that have 3 or more pigments in them, then you could possibly cross mix, meaning you could get a muddy color. So single pigments, you know, they do have some value. This is, they always give you this. It has all their colors on it. You know, you can look those up. So that's that. But look at, I really want to show you these colors. Look how pretty they are. I mean, these, if you're a floral painter like me, these are really great. I love them all. So there you go. They have a lot of pinks, reds, oranges, and I really love this light blue, which they're calling a lavender violet. It really reminds me of the sky blue in the Meeden palette. And the Meeden palette, remember, is a sister company of Paul Rubens. So that kind of made sense to me. They do give you a lot of blues. Now, interestingly, I don't use a lot of blues. So I'm kind of taking this as a challenge for me to get used to using more blues. I had been wanting to do that anyway because I think they're really beautiful in florals for berries and things. So I'm pretty okay with that. You have your browns. One thing I'll tell you too, I thought it was really interesting, the yellow sienna, which in the Meeden palette is, you can get a little bit darker, but this was as dark as I could get that. So I thought that was just an observation, just interesting. Thought I'd share that with you. And they give you a lot of other browns. They're calling it Cypress Brown Deep, Van Dyke Brown, Burned Brown. And it was interesting to me, look at all the yellows. Makes sense because florals have a lot of yellows in them. The Indian yellow to me reminded me of a yellow orange. And this one, I was thinking it might be their version in the flower world of like a yellow ochre, but it didn't have quite as much gold in it. So, but they did have olive green, which I love. They do have the browns. I like Van Dyke Brown. This one, I wish it was a little bit more opaque, but that's okay. I like it because I can mix things. And their sea blue is that beautiful in the Mylang. It's turkey blue. So I was kind of happy to see that as well. And turquoise light, that was kind of a new color. I hadn't seen that one. It's probably been in their palettes before, just nothing I've used lately. So that could be some really pretty flowers. All right, let's play with these and paint that Morning Glory. So as you saw, I sprayed these, just got them activated. I don't normally paint in these palettes because I don't like the way they beat up, and I usually have to treat the palettes if I'm going to use them, you know, in lieu of something like this. So, but we'll kind of try it out and see how that works. Here is that big old bad boy, 16 round. This is in one of the 5 brushes in my set. And a fun fact about Craftamo. Craftamo, if you broke it down, means I love crafts. This is quite literal, I think, translation, according to them. Amo, A-M-O, means I love, and craft ammo. I love crafts. I love little fun facts like that. And the other thing I don't know if I've shared is, you know, the Craftamo brushes. This is just important to me. No judgment on anybody else. They're cruelty-free, and they really make a big point of that, and I like that. That's just my thing. All right, so I've got my 2 containers of water here. Let me grab my tissue for blotting, and I'm hoping you will be able to kind of see the colors I'm picking up here. I did find these to be pretty bright. They seem like they were maybe just a little, a lot of them were very, I take that back. I'm looking at this one, which is really translucent. This one seemed a little bit more translucent, and some of their browns, but I look at it as for flowers, I'm okay with that. And I can do layers to build up the magenta and the purple, and actually the Chinese red, they're indigo, they're green. So they do have a lot of them that are quite vibrant, quite saturated. Okay, so let's get going. For the Morning Glory, I'm going to freehand this, but please feel free to draw it out and use those guidelines. I'm going to just use some brush strokes and make this really fun and easy for us, because that's my groove, guys. Okay. I'm going to, like I said, I don't have these flowers, but they're kind of fun looking. Okay, let's grab their permanent violet. That's this one right here. And let's just, okay, this is really interesting to me. So normally, and I noticed this in a couple of their other palettes, which I really appreciate. I don't know if this was an intentional thing, but one of the reasons I don't like working in these palettes is typically new palettes will all beat up. And this one's, I don't know what they did there. You know, I'm actually going to write to them and ask if that was an intentional thing, because it's beating up a little bit, but compared to a normal palette that you can't even use, it's not bad. So let's go ahead. I put about, I'm going to use about, well, I'm going to go in with the lighter value first, as I always do, because we can always build up layers. And you can, you know, definitely put it in your palette here. This is a Meeden palette. But I wanted to point that out with their palette because I thought that was really cool. And those are those little thoughtful things that I think Paul Rubens always does so well. And again, I'm going to write to him and ask if that was intentional, but I love that because if I was to bring this palette with me, which I do with a lot of their others, I don't have to bring a palette to mix in. And I don't have to worry about treating this. I think back in the day, I used to treat them with like toothpaste, you know, rub them with toothpaste and rinse them. You can use sandpaper, but so I'm really curious about that, Paul Rubens. By the way, happy 14th anniversary, Paul Rubens. Okay, the brush stroke I'm going to use, let me just show you on here. I'm going to hold my brush to the right and use any round brush you have. I'm just using my Craftimo brush because I want to show this to you. And I don't think I've ever shared this big old bad boy, the 16. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to do that. And these brushes that I created, as you know, I like kind of snappy, so they're a little bit snappy. I did the ombre effect to make it pretty. So they're not real soft. Now, of course, this brush is bigger, so it's gonna hold more. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use the side of my brush. So resting my palm on my paper, this paper for practice, just to show you these brush strokes, holding it about where the crimp is. And these brushes too have a short handle. I can't paint with long handles. I'm constantly hitting things. I'm hitting myself. So to me, the long handles are made more for if you're painting on an easel, you know, you can hold back here, but I like a nice short handle if I feel like I have more control, and I hold right here. Holding my brush horizontal, picking up some of that paint, and I'm going to use the side of my brush. So these are the brush strokes I'm going to use for that morning glory. So maybe practice a few of those. And, you know, make your morning glory. I saw them all different colors from blues to purples. And I'm going to add a little bit. I'm going to take advantage of that beautiful opera rose, which actually they're calling peach light, to put into my flower. Okay. So let's go ahead. I could use this, definitely, out of here. But look at that. See, I don't know why I'm so fascinated by that. I think because I've never had a palette, brand new palette, that I could do that in. Just really curious if that was a thoughtful choice on their part. All right, let's go ahead and paint this beautiful little flower. So using the side of my brush, I'm just going to start, and keep in mind, I'm leaving some area down in here because I want that white part in the center of the trumpet. And then going around, holding my brush. But the end of the petal is facing down into the flower. So over here, maybe now I start curving this, something like that. And there you go. Notice I tried to leave, you know, white spaces between these. Now, before that dries, I really want to go in there, and I'm just tapping in, wet on wet, some more of that purple, but let's throw in a little bit of, I'm dying to use it. Ooh, that is definitely like opera rose. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Paul Rubens, I think it's great. Let's see, let's mix even a little bit of that magenta. Because I noticed too in these flowers, again, I haven't had these in my garden, but they had like these star things like that. And again, I try to decide what is going to make it noticeable for myself and for viewers. Ooh, look at that. That's pretty dark. Let's lighten that up a bit. Tap off. And going down in here. So I want all those petals. Now this is the front petal, so, you know, it's got a little bit different there. Let's wash off my brush. Let me grab my tissue. Tap it off, and I'm going to grab some of their green. Let's see. It's sometimes hard to tell in here, so that's why I love this reference. So the green I want is going to be the Eternal Green, which reminds me of Emerald Green, and Hookers, which is a couple over from that tree. This reminds me of the yellow green, by the way, in the My Lang palette. Okay, and I want to do this while this is a little bit wet, but I want a very light, you know, the trumpet part. I want it to be kind of light. Have a little bit too much water there, like that. Isn't that fun? How pretty, huh? This was such a cool flower. I kind of wish we could get them here. And then I'm going to add in just the tiniest bit of the flower. I've got a little bit of a puddle there. So what I'll do is dry off my brush and just, it becomes a thirsty brush, and pick that up. I just wanted the tiniest bit of the flower in there, so it looks like they're connected. The other thing I'll do is, before this dries too much, is go into that center and add in, let's see, they call this color that Indian yellow. To me, it's a yellow orange. Again, mixing it on my palette here. Love it, love it, love it. It does bead a little, but you know, compared to normal, it's not bad at all. And I'm just going to dab into the middle and even let it spread a little bit. Okay, let's add in, let me get rid of all that yellow. Not a big deal because I'm going into the green. And carry that down. Isn't that pretty? What a cool flower. It's kind of making me laugh that sometimes I haven't had these flowers. And those sepals, which is really the recognizable thing here. And what I'll do is go in as this dries and add some more color in there. So I think what I want to do too, I'm going to put that brush down for a minute and grab my 8 round. Love this brush too. And I want to go in and maybe let's add some of that color with the purple. And I should have done this before it really dried as much as it did, because now I might have to go in and just blend it a bit with a damp brush, but I wanted to add that in just for some interest. And maybe even, you know, some little lines. So how I'm going to blend that is rinse my brush, tap it off so it's damp. And you've seen me do this before. Now that one was still wet, so that one's good. Is just take a damp brush and help it. Look how beautiful. Isn't that so fun, you guys? All right, let's do the little bud. So I've got a drip coming off my brush. Too much. Let's do the little bud over here. So I'm going to use the side of my brush a little bit. And why I like using the side of my brush is because I can start with that tip and get the very tippy toe, a thin line, and then I can turn my wrist, flatten it out more horizontal, and I can get that broad stroke. So point, press, and intentionally leaving that white space in between. Let's go in there before that dries too much and just tap in some of that purpley color. Love it, love it, love it. And then we'll go in, I'm gonna wash and rinse my brush because I'm going into green, and green and purple are opposites. So if my brush isn't clean, there's a good chance I could create some mud here. So I don't wanna do that. And then let's do, you know, carry on that funnel shape here and go back into our petal, our stem. There we go. Look how pretty that blend is. Isn't that gorgeous? We could even play a little bit here and pick up some paint if you want a little softer edge. So pretty. Okay. Might add some little doohickeys. I don't even know if that's really on a Morning Glory, but I'm putting them there. And now let's do those leaves, the little heart-shaped leaves, which of course you can only imagine. I loved that. So here's one here, point, opening up my brush, point, opening up my brush. Now I made that a little bit more of a rose petal, kind of circular, and then something like that. I had to kind of save that there. I don't know if you guys caught that because I really meant for the bottom of the leaf to be down here. And then let's do another one right here. So here's our stem, and then like that. Such pretty leaves, right? I thought those were pretty fascinating. Just dotting in damp on damp. And we could even add in some just to play with these colors, because I love in the palette that tree green, or I guess this is a yellow green in the Mylang palette. And I think that's quite fun. But look at how beautiful. I mean, I'm telling you guys, if you paint a lot of florals, this is a great little palette. It has all the floral colors. And look how pretty. They really did good using them in the same bias. I feel like most of these are in a cool bias, so they're all going to mix together. That's really important, because if they didn't have thought into the colors they were choosing, you'd end up with different biases and you could make mud. But they, in my opinion, what I think is they used a lot of the cool bias colors, so they all go really well together. Now the funnest part is these little curly cues, which, you know what, I would love to hear from one of you guys if they really do have these curly cues, because I just saw this online and thought, oh my gosh, how fun. They remind me of like a sweet pea. So there you go, you guys. I think this was such a great little project to try out this Paul Rubens floral collection. As you know, I love them. Can't say enough about them. Have used them for years, long before you know, they ever sent me any of their paints to use. I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. And again, really nice, vibrant colors, but yet they're not shocking vibrant. They give you a lot of these really pretty colors. I should have actually tried to use maybe some of that turquoise light. That would have been pretty in here, but you know, use your own colors. And check out this palette. I think, again, if you're a floral painter, these would be really pretty. I also really liked that lavender violet. I meant to use that in here, didn't get to that. And for whoever asked about that Morning Glory, there you go. That would be my approach to a Morning Glory. And the drawing, use those guidelines. And that's it. Thank you so much, Paul Rubens, and happy 14th anniversary. I think this is definitely a win for me. Also, I didn't notice this or mention this for some of you that this is important. They used a 1:8 scale for their light fastness. Light fastness just meaning if you were to paint with these and give them as a gift, you know, if how quick they might fade, what their light fastness is. And most of them on a chart of 1 to 8 were 7s. There was a few like the peach light, which just as in Opera Rose always has a really lighter light fastness. It was a 5 here, but most of these, there's a few 5s, a lot of 8s. A lot of 7s. So I think that was really great. Paul Rubens, you did great here, and I love it. And happy painting, you guys. I hope you check that out and give this little Morning Glory a try. If any of you have Morning Glories or know about them, please share with us any little facts. I'm curious if these little tendrils are really a thing. And thanks for being here with me in our little community. Love waking up to your messages and seeing what you guys are doing. And just a reminder that, you know what, you guys are all artists. You're artists right now, whether you feel it or not. Remind yourself you're an artist. You have your unique, distinct style. Embrace it, have fun with it, and happy painting.